Hi, I'm Kevin Toll with Peace, Love, and Safe Driving. Welcome to today's episode about perpendicular parking. We're going to talk about perpendicular parking to the left and perpendicular parking to the right and what makes it so difficult. We'll give you a few easy tips to solve those problems. One of the problems with perpendicular parking, it's the approach. Most people don't understand or they forget that it's two-way traffic. So you should always be in the correct lane as you approach. If you try to cheat to go into a parking spot early, you're bound to cut off your lines and your angles. When parking to the left, you should be as far as you possibly can at the end of the painted lines of the parking spots that are next to you. You should look out your side window. You should line up your shoulder with one of the parking lines. If you take a look out the window from the driver's seat, your shoulder will be lined up with a parking line prior to the parking spot that you're going to be taking. The front bumper is now even with the first line of the parking spot you'll be parking in. Put on your signal, lightly let go of the brake, and gradually turn the wheel to the left. You still should be able to see the left parking light underneath your side mirror as you start to approach into your parking spot. Once you are straight, straighten up your wheel and go to the end of your parking spot. As you approach into your parking spot, use the lines of the parking spot in front of you to help center yourself in your parking spot, making sure that you do not go through the end line into the parking spot in front of you. Here's a car that is going in the middle of the traveling lane, starting to turn the wheel before the front bumper gets to the first line. So you're coming at an angle. You're probably cutting off a little bit of the left line and you're turning extremely sharp to get into your parking spot. Now you're in your parking spot, you're parallel to your lines, but if there were parked cars, you would have a problem. Now we're approaching the same parking spot, but we're going beyond the shoulder line, beyond the bumper with the first line. Now we're going to go far over into the right side of a parking spot, backing into the left spot, and now you're in your parking spot. Very close to the right side of the line of your parking spot. Plenty of room off to the left. It doesn't look that bad from the outside, but if there was a car to the right of us, we would have hit it. So let's just kind of go back and do each of those maneuvers and set up cones with a piece of wood and see if we would have hit cars. Okay, what we've done is we've set up some safety cones with a thin piece of wood to simulate where a side of a vehicle would be. We're basically about a foot off the line on either side. One of the problems with a vehicle, it does give you a reference as you pull in. Now we're going to lose these cones as we go into our parking spot, and that's very common for a new driver. They lose sight of what is to the left or the right of the vehicle because they're focused so much onto the front part of the car. So let's get in the car and take a look at not having good angles coming into your parking spot. I'm approaching from the middle of the traveling lane. I'm going to start my turn a little bit early. This is a common problem for most people. They try to get in at the very top of the white line and then they find that they're going to hit the car to the right, so they turn real sharp to the left. Now you notice that we didn't hit the cones, but we are on the line to the left of our parking spot. Never want to hit a car again. This time we're going to go a little bit beyond the shoulder line, the bumper with the first line of your parking spot. So this is going to be a late turn into a parking spot. So here we are turning very, very lately. As you see, hitting the cone, hitting the wood. It would have been a car. If you have a new driver, you don't have a safety brake where you could stop the car, you've just had your first crash. Let's talk about one of the most difficult things of perpendicular parking. Maybe not so much getting in, but a lot of people forget that they've got to get out of their parking spot. And a lot of times when you're going to be backing to the right, now you can back to the left or to the right out of a perpendicular parking spot, but here's a person that only looks to the right, doesn't look to the left, and starts turning the wheel way too early. Notice, hits the piece of wood. That would be scraping up on the side of a car. You now have another crash because you don't focus your attention to the front of the vehicle. Let's go back in and do it the right way. Okay, let's talk about how to get out of a parking spot correctly and safely. You have a choice. You can back to the left or you could back to the right out of a perpendicular parking spot, so it doesn't matter which way that you go. I prefer always backing to the left because it's going to be a wider turn. It's not going to be quite as sharp as the one to the right. But the most important thing to remember about backing out of a perpendicular parking spot is to have your rear view mirror and your side view mirrors adjusted, because even though you're focusing your attention to the right or to the left, what could be coming down the traveling lane, you got to remember there are parked cars behind you in a busy parking lot. And if they're backing out at the same time that you're backing out, and they're not looking at you and you're not looking at them, you are now on a crash course and you're going to hit each other. So my recommendation for backing out of any parking spot is to go out left, right, check, go out 6 inches, stop, look again, go out a little bit further, check, check. When you see that no one's coming and you're halfway out would bring your body to the end of the painted parking lines on either side. No one's backing out of a parking spot. No traffic is coming down in either direction. You now can perform your maneuver to the left. So we're going to turn sharp to the left, and that is going to bring us way over onto the left side of the parking lot. Then we can straighten up. You may not be able to get fully straight, but at least you're not going to be hitting a car backing out of a parking spot. Let's take a look at what it would look like if you were to back out from the right. So let's go back into the parking spot. We line up our shoulder with the line prior to the parking spot that we want. We check our rear view mirror, no traffic's coming towards us. We start our turn, we do hand over hand for a quicker, smoother turn. We're coming into our parking spot, we're almost completely straight. We use the lines in front of us. We straighten up our wheel. We go the rest of the way in, trying to get equal space on both sides. So let's back to the right. So putting on your signal, looking both directions, going out 6 inches or so, checking, going out a little bit further, because if there was a car coming, they'd see your backup lights and they would stop to let you out. Now we're at the very end of the painted lines to the right and to the left of us. We are now going to gradually turn to the right till we cleared the car to the left, and now we turn the rest of the way. But notice you're not going to be able to get straight because you have to back out halfway. This is when you put it in drive, you straighten up your car, and you get over into the correct side of your traveling lane. Now for the most difficult way to perpendicular park is to the right. The reason being is traffic is supposed to stay over to the right. But in order to get into that parking spot between the cones, I have to bring my vehicle all the way over as far as I can to the end of the painted lines to the left of me. I am still going to line up my shoulder with the line of the parking spot prior to the parking spot that I want. I put on my signal, and now I start my turn. Hand over hand. Notice I'm not going to hit the cone to the left, which is very common. I wait till I'm straight, and I straighten up my wheel. I approach my parking spot to the furthest point to the left. I line up my shoulder with the line prior to my parking spot. I hesitate. I let go of the brake. I go hand over hand. Watch that I don't hit the cone with the wood. That would be a car. I straighten up my wheel. And now I'm perfectly centered in my parking spot. I approach my parking spot as far to the left as I possibly can without getting too close to the cars that are to the left of me. I line up my shoulder with a line prior to the spot that I want. I hesitate for a moment. I let go of the brake. I go hand over hand. Notice the left corner is not getting too close to the cones in the board where there would be a car. I wait till I'm straightened up. And now I'm centered in my parking spot, making sure that I don't go too deep. Okay, now we're going to back out of the parking spot. Most people that park to the right will have a tendency to want to back out to the right. So what they normally don't do is they don't use your signal. You got to remember, when you use the signal coming out of a parking spot, it gets people attention. A lot of people say, why do I have to use my directional with backing out of a parking spot? There is no guessing which way the car is going. They see the backup lights, they see the directional, it gets their attention. You don't want people to be backing up the same time that you are. You don't want people going around your vehicle while you're trying to get out. So you look over your right shoulder. If you're backing to the right, you look both ways. You go out about 6 inches. You want people to see your backup lights, your directional. If no one's coming by and you can't see, you're going to go out a little bit further. When you're about halfway out, you're going to start to slowly turn to the right. Notice we're no longer going to hit that piece of wood. Now we're going to be a little bit crooked, but what we do is we stop, we straighten up our wheel, and we pull over to the correct side of the road if more traffic is going to be coming down the parking spot. Okay, cones are much cheaper than cars. These are cones that I bought at Home Depot, I believe, for about $15 a piece. This is scrap wood that I just had laying around in my garage. So I figured that I would use this as a guide of where a car would probably be parked. What we've tried to do is simulate where parked cars would be. If you go to any parking lot, you'll notice that most cars are going to be one side or the other, close to the left or close to the right, maybe in a little bit deep. One of the first things I tell my students when they go into a parking lot is select not only the best parking spot that you think would be the easiest to get into, but also what would be the easiest to get out of. Because if you're only going to go into the store for a few minutes, when you come back out, the cars that are next to you will probably still be there. So not only thinking about when you look around a parking lot, where is the best place for me to park, but where is the best place for me to back out? Another quick tip about driving. If your son or daughter has a difficult time making turns on a residential or city street, take them to a parking lot and not only practice going down each traveling lane, but also parking into parking spots and getting out because there's such sharp turns. And after parking for 15-20 minutes, you're going to probably be able to do probably 20 or 30 parking spots. That is 20 or 30 hand over hands parking maneuvers that you're doing that will kind of reiterate what you're trying to do with how to make a good, safe.
For peace, love, and safe driving. Remember to click the